Story 1. Growing up, I believed that my mom's husband, who I will call James for clarity, was my biological father. I had no reason to think otherwise. To me, we were a typical family. Mom, dad, 3 kids, myself, and 2 younger half-brothers, Sam and Noah, and a dog. As I got older, however, cracks began to show in this illusion. I noticed differences in how I was treated compared to my brothers. Family dinners were tense. There was shouting, jealousy, and even bruises. The turning point came one night during my early teens when James physically pushed my mom through a wall. I will never forget the hole near the front door, shaped like her shoulders and as long as her torso. Despite the severity, she didn't call the police, and to my shame, neither did I. Instead, she managed to calm him down the only way she knew how and then filed for divorce as soon as she could safely do so. Following the divorce, my mom got custody of me and Sam. James had no legal claim to me because he wasn't my biological father. However, he manipulated Noah with guilt-tripping mind games. James told Noah things like, "If you stay with your mom, I'll harm myself," which terrified Noah. At only 10 years old, Noah began running away and threatening to hurt himself if we didn't let him live with James. Ultimately, we had no choice but to let him go, even though Noah was too young to understand the full implications of that decision. James moved Noah out of state and completely cut off contact with us. For almost a decade, we didn't hear a single word from him, no phone calls, no letters, nothing. During that time, I was introduced to my biological father, whom I hadn't even known existed before then. For context, my mom had me before meeting James, but he had insisted on raising me as his own. I started college, got engaged, and moved on with life as best as I could, though I was far from okay. Then, out of the blue, Noah came back. He was deeply traumatized, suffering from severe post-traumatic stress disorder and emotional scars from years of living with James without any support. Noah sought therapy, held down a job, and got his own apartment. But he had developed some unhealthy coping mechanisms, including turning to alcohol. All we could do was watch and hope he found his way. Up until this point, I had managed to avoid seeing James since the divorce. Sam occasionally kept in contact with him after Noah returned, but I had no desire to engage with James at all. He didn't know my phone number, where I lived, or anything about my life, and I intended to keep it that way. I often said that if I ever saw him again, I might not be able to control my actions. Then everything unraveled in quick succession. First, our mom passed away. Noah struggled deeply with losing her after having so little time to reconnect with her. Shortly after, his therapy dog died, and when the pandemic hit, it became too much for him to handle. Noah turned increasingly to his vices, and his drinking worsened. One early Wednesday morning, at around 5 o'clock, I was jolted awake by a call from an unknown number. It was James. He had gotten my number from Sam. With a strained voice, he told me that Noah had been in a car crash. Noah was at fault. Thankfully, no one else was hurt, but Noah had not survived the accident. Because Noah had never officially severed legal ties with James, James was still listed as his next of kin. That meant James was the one notified by the authorities, the one who would receive the life insurance payout, and the only person authorized to handle Noah's final arrangements. The next few days remain a blur in my memory. The only vivid moment I recall is James showing up at my doorstep, wailing dramatically about how God could take his son. Hearing those words from the man who had caused Noah so much pain made me want to scream. This was the same man who had tormented Noah to the point where he couldn't eat in public without becoming physically ill. The same man who had subjected him to years of trauma. Noah once confided to me that if he had known the day of his death in advance, he might have taken James with him. James took half of Noah's life insurance payout for himself and divided the remainder between Sam and me, after deducting taxes. He called this fair. Every time I think about it, I feel a surge of anger that's almost impossible to contain. Since then, James has been reaching out to me regularly. He keeps repeating how much he loved my mom, how he never meant to hurt anyone, and how I will always be his child, regardless of biology. He insists he would do anything for me. I haven't been able to respond with anything meaningful. My replies are limited to empty phrases like, aha, or okay. Sam, on the other hand, is urging me to keep things civil. He reminds me that James is still his biological father and the only parent he has left. But I can't bring myself to feel the same way. All I want is for James to disappear from my life permanently. Maybe that makes me a terrible person, but I can't find it in myself to feel guilty about that. Story 2. A couple years ago, I had a job doing some translating. The job was simple, easy and boring, but because I had a skill set that was rare and necessary for the job, they needed me more than I needed them. Management were kinda dumb and unhelpful. The kind of managers who would try to write you up for going to the toilet too many times a day, or for taking 1 minute longer on your lunch break because a queue to get past security isn't a good enough excuse. You need to be back 5 minutes before your lunch ends. A coworker of mine was reprimanded by management for doing his work too quickly. When he asked what concerns about the quality they had, they told him that it makes everyone else look like they're slacking, which looks bad to the company who outsourced us. So basically, management just wanted everyone to look busy. During my time there, I got diagnosed with a chronic illness that meant I could no longer work my original contractual hours of 40 hours a week. Instead, I would sign a new contract stipulating that I would work Monday to Wednesday, from 9 to 5. They were very reluctant to do this, and no one else was able to get such an adjustment. But since they couldn't find anyone who spoke my language, they were a little screwed. This worked out to be beneficial for both of us. I got my work done a lot faster now that I wasn't chronically worn down and the company didn't lose my skills. One day, I received a letter from a clinic I had been referred to. I was no longer on the waiting list, and they would be able to see me for my initial appointment the following week on Tuesday. Great, I thought, I will just let management know. So, the next day I spoke to my manager. Hey, I've got a clinic appointment coming through and it's on Tuesday. I don't know how long it will last, and it's an hour's drive from work. So I was thinking if I could have this Tuesday off and make up the hours on Thursday. They asked for some time to get back to me, and when I followed them up on it the next day, they told me I was only allowed to work my contractual hours, that I would have to take my holiday time off or an unpaid time off. But since it was such short notice, they couldn't approve it and I should be more careful with my planning in the future. The thing is, I had been on this waiting list for a couple months, and the only appointments they give for the initial one is short notice. I would value my health over work any day, so I shrugged and said okay. I called in sick on that Tuesday, citing my chronic illness, went to my clinic, and got a doctor's note from my GP. The following day, I was immediately called into a meeting. They accused me of skipping work, calling in a fake sickness, and threatened me with a disciplinary. I handed them my sick note, with my doctor explaining that my illness is chronic and prone to flare-ups. He also included his personal opinion that it's a reasonable adjustment to be able to attend any medical appointments necessary for managing my disability. There was a lot of back and forth with them accusing me of faking it. I refused to sign any disciplinary forms, and eventually I was asked to go back to my desk while they discussed it with higher management. Some time goes by, and I'm invited back into the meeting room. Manager, we've come to the conclusion that your absence was valid, and we will accept this sick note from your doctor. However, we would ask that you make up the hours that you missed this Thursday. I'm pleased to hear that. Unfortunately, I will not be able to work this Thursday, as I have been informed that I'm not allowed to work outside my contractual hours. After that, the meeting was pretty much over. Management wasn't happy, but I got my sick pay and didn't work that Thursday. I stuck it out for a couple more weeks, but management was super grating. When I handed in my notice, they begged me to stay, offered me a significant pay raise, more than what my next job was offering me. But working with tedious management just wasn't worth it, and I had great fun telling them that. Story 3. So this happened a couple of weeks ago, but I just joined this subreddit, so I'm posting this now. I, a 16-year-old female, have epilepsy. I won't go into what kind since that's a little too much information. But yeah, I was diagnosed when I was 11, and a couple months after, we got my service dog, Apollo. He went through all the special training and earned his vest, with his name on it, and a patch that says "Do Not Pet." He's an amazing service dog, and I wouldn't want any other dog. He's a border collie/husky mix. So as you can imagine, he's very fluffy, so of course people would want to pet him. But the thing is, if someone excites him too much, he loses his focus, and that can put me in serious danger. So that's why you're not supposed to rub him or give him pets, unless you have permission from me. I haven't had a seizure in about a year and a half. But the thing is, they can happen at any time for me. If I'm extremely stressed out, if I haven't eaten anything, or if I haven't gotten enough sleep. Well, a couple of weeks ago, I was at Target with my dad, and that day, I hadn't been able to eat breakfast or lunch, and I had only gotten about an hour of sleep, so I was at very high risk of a seizure. But we were looking at the camping stuff, when a little kid, who was about 10, saw my dog and started ewing and awing at him. I could see her staring at the patch that says "Do Not Pet," very intently reading it over and over. I tried to ignore her and tried talking to my dad about supplies for a trip. Well, about 30 seconds later, I hear the kid ask her mom, "Mom, can I pet that dog?" And her mom goes, "Of course, sweetie. What else are dogs for?" And the kid starts squealing and runs over to pet Apollo. I tried to pull him away, but this kid was fast. She already started petting him and pulling on his tail, and he was very startled and got very distracted. I go, "Hey," and pull my dog away from this kid and tell her, "Please back away." Well, this kid starts screaming and crying and yelling at me, and the entitled parent goes, "What is your problem?" And I'm like, "What's your problem? This is a service dog. You don't pet service dogs without asking the owner first." Now he's all distracted and lost his focus. That could kill me. And while the kid is still crying and trying to get to my dog, the mom goes, "You're being dramatic. You won't die. I bet that's not even a real service dog. Just let my kid play with it," and reaches for the leash. I can feel my hands and arms shaking really badly, which is a sure sign that I'll have a seizure soon, and I tell at her no, and pull away again. She starts huffing and tells me she's going to report me and marches away with her still screeching kid. Well, apparently when she tried to talk to the manager about what happened, the manager got upset and told her the same thing I did, and the mom and her kid got kicked out of the store without even being able to buy anything. And the manager came to personally apologize, so that was nice. Karma for the entitled mother. I just don't understand why some parents act like that. Like, what's that teaching your kid? Story 4. This happened very recently, just a few hours ago, and I am absolutely fuming in anger and hate, so bear with me. The cast: me, entitled neighbor, her kid who is a good kid, and the Amazon delivery dude. Context: my family and I are immigrants. My mom and siblings don't look the part, but my dad does heavily, and he's met this lady before, and we've had worse relationship and conversations with her. Story for another time. On with the story. My family are tech savvy. We like to keep up with the trends and recently discovered smart home products. My parents were ecstatic. We had been looking into it and ordered the required products off Amazon. There were a lot, like 15-20 different packages. The products all arrived at different times during the week, and the entitled neighbor and her kid just happened to notice the packages piling up outside on the daily. On the 5th day of the week, when we expected the last batch of packages, around 3 that day, I went out to collect them when I saw her walking her dog. She commented on the amount of packages I had been receiving. It went like this: "Entitled neighbor, that's a lot of packages you've been getting." Me: "Yeah, I'm aware." "Well, that's kind of fishy. What's even in those?" "It's really none of your business." "Well, it's really strange that a young man like you can even afford those. I bet you're stealing money from your parents to pay for those." Again, none of your business. I grabbed the boxes and slammed the door behind. Fast forward to today. The Amazon delivery dude leaves packages by the door. I go out to collect them. The entitled neighbor runs to the front door and attempts to take one of them. Me: "Hey, That's mine. Not anymore, young man. You've been getting too many gifts these last few days, and you're making my child jealous. What are you talking about? These are mine. They belong to me, and I'm keeping them. I snatched it out of her hands. No, I'm taking all these for my angels. You can't possibly be able to afford these. She then proceeded to smash one of the boxes. The contents were fine. Entitled neighbor, there, take your stupid package now. My dad walks out. What's going on? Her. Your child stole my packages, and she smashed one of them too. What are you talking about? These are our packages we ordered, and I saw you smashing it through the window. Well, it's not fair that you get to have all these. Angels over there deserve something too. I don't care, you can go buy whatever you want yourself. These are ours. Nice kid. Mom, let's go. Let's not bother them anymore. The entitled neighbor lets out a Karen grunt. Well, I'll report you and your spoiled brat to the police for harassment. Dad points towards the outdoor cameras as well as the video doorbell. Then we'll show all the camera footage to them and let them decide. She leaves in anger and defeat. The kid says, I am so sorry. My mom is going through a lot of mental health issues, and I assure you it won't happen again. And then he leaves. I'm still pissed by her accusations of me and my dad. We came from a tough past, and we worked hard for what we have. This is not the first time she has done something like this, and I won't be forgiving nor accepting of her actions in the future. Story 5. I was just browsing YouTube yesterday when I saw a video about my last post, and I realized I never made a final update. So here it is. To start things off, yes, my bike is fine. I managed to avoid anything on it getting rusty or clogged up after my sister had it dumped in a pond. It already was not new, and there were no new creaks or groans from it. I was worried something on it would go bad, but it's a really simple single-speed bike, so it works just fine after having everything oiled after being submerged in water. I re-greased the crank bearings anyway. I've also changed out the rear tube and tire myself a few months ago, and I still ride practically everywhere. On to my brat of a sister. She barely managed to pass college, and she did try to blame her low grades on me and depression from the bike incident multiple times. But even our parents stopped allowing her to do that. They finally hit their limits and started cracking down on her bad behavior, and made her sit in her room and study whenever she had a pity party or tantrum. They threatened to cut off the Wi-Fi and shut off her phone multiple times if she didn't actually get her homework done. She cried and said she hated them, but she sucked it up and finally did as told. She finally managed to graduate, but her graduation was not a very fun time for her. We all went out to celebrate with her, but she was just not happy, and the reason why is because she has no friends anymore, and she'd hoped to party with her former clique friends after graduation. But they all cut her off some time ago because she's a brat. As an ironic punishment, our parents started making my sister ride a bicycle to get around. She hated it more than she hates the bus. It's a cruiser bike our dad picked up used for her, and our parents practically begged me to take her out on weekend rides to get her out of the house for a few hours. And I did, but only because they asked nicely and offered dinner. Last we spoke of it, my sister still held firm she believes it's wrong to eat at the hospital for some reason, but couldn't find any valid reason to justify it when asked why by anyone. Literally no one sided with her about it anymore. Even our parents admitted they no longer find it weird after being told the cafeteria is actually a separate business from the hospital. And as another show to the family, they actually went with me to have a family lunch at the hospital a couple of times, and they forced my sister to come along. She looked weirdly fidgety, and openly said she couldn't believe they made her eat there when it was against her beliefs. She kind of worded it in a way as like it was against her religion, or something, and was told off for exactly that. So she just cried like she always did, but was told to grow up. I think she was just standing by her so-called beliefs because she'd have to admit she was wrong to herself if she did, and she just wouldn't do that. There have been times I questioned if she's not just a spoiled control freak, but a narcissist too. though I'm far from qualified to diagnose anyone. My sister's clique all ended up abandoning her as a friend because being involved with her screwed them over too, since at least 2 of them shared in her plan to steal my bike and dump it. They all got hazed for it when word got out, so the clique blamed my sister for everything and stopped talking to her to save their own reputations. While I didn't file a police report, the 2 girls who stole my bike did get in big trouble with their families. And that minivan they were driving, it turned out it was borrowed from one of their parents, and they stopped allowing its use after finding out what happened. The parents who owned the minivan even visited me to apologize to me on behalf of their daughter, and also asked for a copy of the video I took, which I gave. Even though they were fully complicit, the clique put it all on my sister and threw her under the bus to everyone. I guess now my sister knows how it feels to be the scapegoat. She was also laughed at for a while since she was forced to ride a bike too, and from college since our parents decided it was cheaper than the bus. And my sister no longer had friends to carpool with. And no, her bike was not stolen or vandalized. My sister just hated it. Our dad has also forced her to learn how to fix and maintain the bike herself too. He used to tinker on bikes in his youth, and still has the tools around, so he knows enough to do all his own work on bikes, even though he no longer rides them himself. And he taught me the basics of working on them too. For those who said that my sister would do something even more crazy or retaliate against me, she did nothing of the sort. She's just bitter. She was made to get counseling, and it's improved her slightly. But if it has any real effect, for all I know it'll take years to see a change in her. But she doesn't try to boss me around anymore. I've been called over for dinner by my parents a number of times since my last post, and my sister barely speaks to me at the table, and she seemed further annoyed by the fact I was completely unbothered by it too. She's been told by everyone, even our parents to an extent, that she destroyed her own reputation. But she can't seem to stop putting blame on me because she needs a scapegoat. I also chained and locked my bike whenever I visited home from the prank incident onward, just in case. After my sister finished college, my parents suddenly announced that my sister was moving out of their house. She openly did not want to, but they forced her to get a job immediately and made her find an apartment. They said her party days were over, and it's time they made her learn about adult life. Multiple relatives told my parents that my sister wouldn't really grow up unless she lives on her own and pays her own bills. My parents deliberated about it for some time because she was obviously their golden child. But my sister would never become an adult so long as they kept things as they were. My sister is still not happy about it at all because she loved being a spoiled leech. But she couldn't blame me for that, as I was not involved in this decision in any way, and she knows it. But she had multiple, it was just a bike, tantrums when she was trying to put the blame on me when things weren't going well for her at college. Our mother once smacked her upside the head and told her to stop acting like I was the one causing all her problems. And it wasn't just a bike to me, it's borderline my livelihood since it's my primary mode of transportation. Currently my sister shares a 2-bedroom apartment with 3 other girls. She had to be moved further away so her reputation wouldn't follow her when she got a job. My mother really cried over that. My sister is working in an office and learning how to be a secretary, but she moans and groans about hating her current life, but also tries to rub it in my face about what she'll do when she makes better money than me. I just told her, "You do you," and she got mad I didn't take the bait. She does not like her roommates, and still has to ride the bike our father got her to get around. Her commute isn't far, just a few miles, so she doesn't waste money on the bus, and walking is too slow for her. She wanted, if not practically demanded our parents to buy her a car since they kicked her out of the house, and they refused to get her one, which made her stop talking to them for a while. I think it's probably pretty obvious my sister and I don't go on bike rides together anymore. That stopped as soon as she moved out. While we were still doing weekend rides together, my sister tried multiple immature plugs she could think of at me. I don't even remember most of them because I just ignored her taunts and didn't even act irritated. Then she'd call me dense or special ed and would roll her eyes. Among her repeated immature taunts One was trying to say things like her bike is better than mine, because it actually has gears. But she could never outpace me anyway. It kinda seemed to make her determined to get in better shape at least. I think she just wants me to be the big loser, so she doesn't feel like one. My sister obviously wants a car, but can't afford one on her own yet because she's not good at saving. She wanted our parents to buy her an e-bike for Christmas, and they refused after seeing how much good ones cost. My sister has already cost them a lot of money anyway since they covered all 3 years of her college. As a bit of a joke on Christmas, I gave her new tires for her bike, which she gave me the stink eye for. Our parents also had to bail her out financially a couple of times in 2024 because she didn't manage her finances well. At this point, despite how much she's been beat down to the consequences of real life, she still acts like a spoiled brat in denial. But otherwise she is somehow managing. Though another thing she's used to be angry at me about these days is the fact I live alone, and she has to have roommates to afford rent. I've met her roommates too, and they actually seem to really like me, which really upset my sister more. I think the reason she hates all of them so much is because they don't bend to her will like our parents used to. She really hates it when people don't do what she wants. So it must be a nightmare for her to be living with people who don't put up with any of her demands. That about sums up everything till now. Story 6. Okay, a little background on my town before we begin. I live in a suburban town in Indiana. Our town is about 45% Hispanic heritage and about 45% European heritage, with a 10% other. We're kind of poor, the majority of the town being lower middle class, with some notable exceptions, that one housing project. What we do have is education. We test higher than almost any other school in the state. So we as a city get tens of millions of dollars that unusually get wasted on swimming pools and such. A little background on my first job. I worked at the Boys and Girls Club. For you non-Americans, it's like a mass babysitting operation, but there's homework help. My job was to take 7th hour to bike to the BGC. It counted as a service credit, even though I got paid, swap into my uniform, wait, sign the elementary kids in, take their bags, and then when they are all there, go to the elementary room and keep them from getting bored and committing mutiny. I was 14 at the time, short for my age, and a real squeaker, but formal as all get out, and eager to make money. I mean help the community. Caste is edible macaroni, also known as the entitled mother. Endangered koala, also known as the entitled kid. Old Yeti, who is the manager, older, chubby, hairy gentleman that everyone loves. And finally, me. This story takes place during my first week of work. I was waiting for the buggers to come storming in, when I glanced from my seat into the parking lot. The entryway was made of glass, and both rooms on either side have massive windows, so I could see the parking lot fairly easily from my seat. And this Ferrari, a literal Ferrari, in our sleepy town, pulls up into a parking spot. It's 2:30, I have just changed, and none of the elementary schools are out yet. As I stare in awe of the beauty of a car, in comes the entitled duo. Entitled mother, hello, I'd like to drop my kid off. Me, is he registered at this or the nearby town Boys and Girls Club? No. Turning back to my book, gesturing to the stack of papers on the counter, I tell her, fill out one of those, take the safety waiver. That's a lot of work, do I have to? It is a page and a half. It's not that bad, and yes, you have to. The entitled mother takes the paper, mumbling something about, not my job, and jerk kids these days. She fills it out, takes her about 6 minutes. I've put my book away and gotten my supplies out, ready for the first of 7 waves of kids. She sauntered over to my desk and handed me the papers. I went to make a copy to give to her, as well as to put the paper on the scanner, so he's in our database. The entitled mother starts to walk off. Me, ma'am, you need your copy. She sighs and turns around to say, okay, just give it to me. Also, you didn't pay, it's $15 a year for our services. For you non-Americans, that's about the price of a golf pencil per day, literally less expensive than the wheat in the free snack. I'm not paying that. Ma'am, We provide free access to a snack, computers, a large library, a gym, arts and crafts, and valuable friendships, all at no extra charge. My little angel should get it for free. He's a good kid academically. Me, internally, he's in 2nd grade. What the hell could this snot magnet have done? But out loud, I say, if you register through any school in the hometown school system, they could give you a reduced price for academic excellence. Can't you do it? Just then, you hear the bell at the elementary school next door to the BGC. I had about 150 seconds until Hell's armies would come in, and chaos would descend for the next 5 hours. Old Yeti also walks by, and I breathe a sigh of relief. Me, hey old Yeti, can you help with this lovely lady over here? Translation. Can you give this witch the business end of a stern talking to? Entitled mother, just give it to me. Her kid runs off into the K2 room, not technically registered or signed in. Old Yeti, I would love to, but I have to help Chef Johnny make the cereal bars for snack. Translation. Sorry, no, I ain't got the patience for her. Ma'am, I am not in authority to give you anything for free. If you do not just hand over $15, I will have to call your kid to the front desk and have you two leave. The gates of hell open, loud, smelly, and wanting to play with their friends. Another employee stops them where the entryway meets the commons, saving me a headache. But I knew waves 2 and 3 were no more than 5 minutes away. Entitled mother. Dear God, people in this town are so stupid, I just want it for free. Me, not completely done with it, but almost. Listen, ma'am, I'm going to spend the next 45 minutes signing kids in. Then I have to deal with their nonsense for another 5 hours. I will almost certainly need to clean up at least one kid who didn't bother to use the restroom. I will likely have to clean a Wii remote so it doesn't give some kid diphtheria or something. I'm ranting now. I have to deal with almost 200 immature kids for minimum wage. I will graciously add your little pile of trash to that list. A prediction of that child that was correct. He was on thin ice for the entire time I was there. But I will not, and I repeat not, deal with an adult more immature than the children. So either pay the $15 or get you and your snot bag out of this establishment. I hear the lady that was keeping hell at bay mumble, wow. The entitled mother, red with embarrassment, meekly reaching into her wallet, says, here you go, sir. Thank you and have a lovely day. She handed me a $100 bill. Just that little extra work to give her change still angers me to this day. By this time, Wave 2 had arrived, and she had gotten a ticket for parking in a handicapped spot. I didn't clear the entryway until after Wave 5, leaving me exhausted for the rest of my shift. The kid almost got banned several times for attempting to harm staff members, namely me. An old Yeti died just last month, and a memorial to his work now stands in the playground.